356 Evolutionary or podcast coming your way. Steve Smee here and Rick in the house. What's up, man?
Hey, what's up, Steve? What's up, guys? How's everybody doing out there?
All right. So, guys, this one we're going to do SR9009 Stenabolic. So, Stenabolic, it is not a SARM. We've done a bunch of SARM episodes. GW is not a SARM as well. Nutribol is not a SARM. Stenabolic is a little different than those, a lot different than Nutribol, kind of like GW, more in that class. It's a Rev ERBA ligand, and that means it simply binds to this protein and makes it more active. So just like all these performance enhancing drugs, when they bind to something, they, create a little action going. So you're going to get some positive effects from it. You're going to get things like fat loss. Endurance is the big one that you're going to get from this one. And you'll notice it pretty damn fast. It was actually, the way it actually acts is much more quicker than anything out there in its class. So much faster than GW. We'll get into that later on. And it also has some other health benefits. But the main one I would say is the endurance. And we're going to talk about that in a bit. So it's going to get more and more popular as we go along, but obviously it is one of the non-SARMs that are popularly sold by SARMs companies. So Rick, there's a reason for that. If it wasn't popular and it wasn't being used, these companies would not carry it. But if you notice, any SARMs company, they carry, the main SARMs, they carry the LGD, they carry the RAD, they carry the orsterine, they carry the androgen, and then they'll carry Nutribol, and then they'll carry GW and SR9009 instead of just carrying GW. So SR9009 does play a factor in performance enhancing drugs. So not a hormone, guys. It's not a hormone. It's not a SARM. It is basically going to bind to that Rev ERBA ligand protein, and that's how it works its magic. So I'm going to bring in Rick. Rick, give us some thoughts on it and some of the history. So 2012, is when it came around?
Yeah, SR9009, known as Stenabolic, it's a research drug. Is developed by Professor Thomas Berry of the Scripps Research Institute. Funny enough, Scripps is nonprofit, but off of the Scripps Institute nonprofit activities, some for-profit companies do spin off with some of their discoveries and research. And basically, SR has been described as a workout in a bottle. It works. There's actually, and from some of the research I've done, there have been different research done on it. And it works basically, it makes your mitochondria work harder, and it also can increase the amount of mitochondria in your cells. And as we all know, mitochondria is basically the powerhouse of the cells of our body. Is really where the calories go in and energy is produced from the mitochondria. There are scientists that theorize that sometime way back in evolution, mitochondria was a separate organism that was taken in by a single cell organism. And the single cell organism that took in this mitochondria basically protected it, because the mitochondria maybe wasn't as, or that version of the mitochondria wasn't as good at protecting itself, but it was really good at making energy. So the big cell would give it protection, and the small organism, the mitochondria, would be in it being protected and making energy for both of them. So mitochondria has its own DNA. If you've ever heard of mitochondrial DNA, that it's only passed down mother to daughter. And SR9009 affects the way the mitochondria works. It's sort of its main purpose and the main way that it interacts with our body. It's only active for a couple of hours, not that long. And there are some questions we're going to discuss on this podcast of whether There's a lot of benefit to taking it when you're not working out. It does give you a bit of a mental high and a bit of an energy boost. It does promote fat loss while it's in your body. It's a very, very interesting compound. It's sort of a GW that has even more benefits than GW, but doesn't quite last this long. GW can be active for about 24 hours. SR, you're looking at 2 to 4. And so you have to dose it more often. Um, it does have some effect on your sleep cycle, on just the way your body and the functions that happen in your body while you're sleeping awake. But that's not all it does. It does affect the body in a lot of different ways that don't affect your sleep cycle. This is one of those new SARMs that came onto the market. It's quite popular. A lot of guys are using it, and there isn't a ton of research behind it. It's already been banned by WADA. It's already on the radar for pretty much all of the major governing bodies that govern sports. It's all there. So if you're a tested athlete, you're going to get popped if you use this. If you use it too much, obviously, because it does have just an incredibly short half-life.
All right, so let's back up a little bit before we get into that and talk about the half-life and all that. Circadian rhythms, the way it affects circadian rhythms. You brought it up a little bit. Tell us a little about that and how what that is and how this can actually affect it, because that's one of the benefits of it.
Circadian rhythm, I just called it sleep cycle here for simplicity purposes. There are a lot of processes that your body goes through during your sleep. When you're asleep, you're obviously you're resting. You have your REM cycle going on in your brain. You're also in a fasted state. And so things like human growth hormone are secreted at a high amount while you sleep, up to 14 to 16 times more human growth hormone released while you're sleeping than when you're awake. Your body goes through different phases of repair, recovery. You really grow when you're sleeping more than when you're at the gym, way more, obviously, right? Now, SR will bring some of these benefits to you while you're awake without you being asleep. If anything, it actually helps you have more wake energy, but it will have some of the benefits, recuperative growth benefits that you would get during sleep. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I fully understand how it all works, because scientists that work on it and developed it don't even understand how it fully works. But from everything we've seen, you kind of get some of that active recovery, some of those benefits that you would get laying down sleeping during REM sleep. You seem to be able to get even while you're wide awake. It's actually pretty interesting compound in that regard. What do you know about that, Steve?
Well, I think you pretty much covered it, but I'm going to kind of, when we start talking about the athletic benefits that we've experienced personally from it, I think people will kind of understand that. But before we do, the other one that it does, similar to the way GW works, probably exactly the way GW works, the way it affects the lipid health positively, unlike SARMs, because SARMs will throw off your cholesterol. SR and GW will actually benefit your cholesterol. And then the second one is glucose metabolism, the way our cells store fat. So get into that. You've actually developed a product called Entuslin. I think you developed it, or I kind of helped you develop it. And it kind of helps with fat storing. So tell us a little about that and how Entuslin actually boosts. Is this is this boosting insulin sensitivity, or is it just changing the way your cells store fat with this SR?
That's a good question. There's people researching it right now that couldn't even really tell you. They can tell you the effects and how it's working on the body, but what it's doing at a cellular level, we are guessing quite a bit. SR is a great one to use with Entuslin. SR, like GW, they both share the benefit that these can be used by people with diabetes, and it could help them with their diabetes. So if anything, both GW and SR are increasing insulin sensitivity in the muscle cells. They're also making the mitochondria in your muscle cells more effective at burning energy. Saw some literature on or the increasing of the actual amount of mitochondria. So there's definitely a positive shift in the way your body utilizes, metabolizes energy that's going to lead you towards less fatty deposits, more spent energy, more energy for your brain, and just your overall health, mood, and attitude improves. So there's definitely some really good key added benefits. How it works at a cellular level, guys, I'm not going to sit here and really pretend I know everything. I've gone through pretty much most of the research that is out there, and even doctors are finding new things. There's a new study, and the study senior author is Mitchell Lasar, MD, PhD, the director of the Institute of Diabetes. And even he's saying that SR's benefits are not limited to or are not as closely tied to affecting your circadian rhythm as we originally thought. He thinks that a lot of the benefits that SR 9009 is providing us don't even involve the REV hyphen ERBS proteins. So it's even something that is still being researched, guys. So I can't really get into into the cellulars of it without maybe later on things shifting and me having put my foot in my mouth, obviously. So for this one, I think I'm gonna mostly focus on the real world effects, because everybody's a little bit confused about how it really works at a cellular level.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. One of the studies, though, I wanted to kind of point out, and I'm going to link it in the show notes, was the one they did on mice. They showed that mice could run 50% more when they took SR9009, both in distance and time. So if you're an endurance athlete, or you just want an edge in the gym, or an edge in the bedroom, or an edge going bicycling or kayaking or swimming at the beach, whatever, this stuff is amazing for that. They also noticed that the changes in metabolic rates increased energy expenditure by 5%, even when the user is resting.
This is one that I'm probably going to give a try and maybe add it onto my GW run that I'll be starting shortly here between now and New Year's. This might be one that I mess with for that. Now, let me ask you a question, Steve. Have you seen anything about heat or temperature going up from user reports using SR9009? Have you seen anything?
No, absolutely not. No,
Because that's interesting about it is this.
not a stimulant. It's not a stimulant.
Well,
No.
it doesn't have to be. For example, something like fucoxanthin, which is naturally occurring in seaweed, it's known as a mitochondrial uncoupler. So it'll actually increase the amount of energy that your mitochondria will burn, but it'll also increase heat. The more action and reactions going on in your mitochondria, there's a higher chance of higher temperature in your body coming from it. It seems like SR9009 makes mitochondria work more effectively without increasing temperature, which is quite interesting. It seems like it's doing other things to help burn body fat and give you energy, besides just making your mitochondria go harder, go faster. Because we know some compounds naturally occurring that already kind of help do that, and they will tend to raise your temperature quite a bit.
No, because you don't sweat more on it. So I would think you would sweat more if that was the case. You know what I'm saying? You're kind of like, you see what I'm saying? So, but if you drink like a lot of coffee before a workout, your temperature will go up, your heart rate will go up, you'll sweat more. But this actually does the opposite. It's kind of like switching out your Honda from a V4 engine to a V6 engine. It's kind of like that. So it's going to give you more torque, more power. And another thing too in the studies was interesting. It actually caused a decrease plasma triglycerides, total cholesterol, plasma non-esterified fatty acids, plasma glucose, plasma insulin. They all dropped in these studies. And I don't think the amount that dropped is transferable to humans as much, but I do think that this does does this in our body, and that's part of the way it helps you burn fat. If we go back to how it helps you burn fat, if it's enhancing your glucose metabolism, it's going to allow you to basically eat the same diet and then burn more fat on it. So,
But
you know, that
people on it, we should explain that what Steve is saying is absolutely right, but you will also feel more hungry than when you take a stim. That's a central nervous system stim that tends to shut appetite down. SR shouldn't have appetite shutdown effect. Would that be correct, Steve?
it doesn't affect appetite at all. The only thing that SR did with me is, let's say I took it and then I went running, I kind of get an upset stomach because of the what was in it, the way they add the whatever they're using, the grain alcohol or whatever fillers they're using. Part of it would kind of upset my stomach a little bit. So what I would do is I would take it in advance of going running. This way I don't just take it right before and it goes into my stomach and it's like, oh, it tastes nasty, you know? And then I got to go running with a nasty taste in my mouth where I want to, you know, puke.
Yeah, those liquids I'm done with. They do use grain alcohol. They use alcohol 151, I've heard, in these liquids, and it does preserve the molecule. I mean it helps stability, but man, is it really tough on your stomach, especially if you're trying to take it like on an empty stomach for AM cardio. This is why I've for my GW and SR run, I got myself some capsules, and I'm going to just be running capsules.
But they put don't they put sugar in those capsules too?
This actually, so there's a dude out there I know, and he does very small private runs. He's a private guy. He doesn't market himself out there, and he doesn't put sugars in the capsules. As a matter of fact, the fillers that he uses for the capsules are going to help the SARMs absorb better into your system. And you can take this stuff on an empty stomach before cardio, and if anything, it'll help settle your stomach down a little bit, because this has been a huge problem with finding some of these liquid SARMs. And yeah, I mean, you really nowadays for steroids, for SARMs, you really want to find a good private source, a guy who's a real chemist, who lives this stuff, who's using the batches of stuff himself, and and actually make some available to people outside to pay the bills. And there's a few guys out there. I'm really friendly with one of them, and this is where I'm getting my GW and my run of SR, which after doing all of the research for it on this podcast, and I've had some people that use Entugard along with SR, and that use Entuslin obviously along with SR. So I know of the good benefits of it, and just going through some of the literature and some of the studies done, and some of the stuff these doctors are saying about it. It seems that out of all the SARMs, SR is one of the more beneficial ones with less harms. You know, it's pretty darn beneficial, and it doesn't have a lot of harms. Now, when you compare it to something like YK11, YK11 is more of a designer steroid. It's more, if you just looking at this the structure on paper, even it looks a lot like a regular steroid, but SR isn't. SR doesn't even work, or doesn't even attach to androgen receptors. SR is more like a GW type of compound, and it does have a ton of additional benefits. I think where it falls short with GW is in the dosing. I mean, you got to take SR what 4 to 6 times a day or something.
Well, I have a bone to pick with that logic, because when SR first came out, a lot of the early gurus, you know, they started using it and they would use it like that. They'd be taking it several times a day. They're like, oh, it's got a very short half life. So you know what? I got to take it very often. The half life on it is very very short, and it's only like a couple hours, maybe 3 hours tops. So it's in and out of your system in a big amount within like 6 to 8 hours. So really, you probably have to dose it 2, 3 times a day if you wanted it in your system 24 hours. So I have a bone to pick with that logic though, because it's the whole purpose of it would be to give you a sharp spike in it going to your body versus GW, which is a 24-hour half-life. So you take the GW, it doesn't build in your system so fast. It'll take time to build in your system. So the GW, you want to take it daily, like every day, the same time daily, and it kind of like flattens out after like a few days. It'll flatten out and be in your system equally throughout the day. Well, SR, if you take it once a day at 8 a.m., you're going to get a sharp spike at 9:30, and then it's going to start coming back down. And then by like the afternoon, it'll be out of your body in, very, very low amounts. And then by the evening, it'll be completely out of your body. So rather than just taking it multiple times a day and getting these wild swings, my logic is just take it right before you're going to do your exercise. This way it gives you that sharp spike, and you could take advantage of it while you're exercising, or while you're doing a race, or while you're doing MMA, or while you're bicycling, or while you're doing whatever, while you're weight training. And then it's not in your system the rest of the day. You can go about your business. So that's why I think SR9009 is much more better as an athlete, taking it that way for exercise advantage versus taking it just for fat loss. I think GW would be better for fat loss because GW you can just take once a day.
Yeah, that is exactly how I plan to incorporate SR9009 into my cycle. I'm going to take the GW twice a day, and I'm just taking the SR before I train, which is going to be twice a day on some days, once a day on others. And then there are days where I might not take it at all when I'm resting. So from all the research I've done, towards in order for me to get towards my goals, which is just getting a little bit bigger and a little bit more ripped right before the holidays, right before New Year's, it seems as though the best way to go about it, the best way to take it, is just right before I'm working out. That is providing that I'm taking GW twice a day. I'm also going to be taking Entuslin, which is my non-stimulant fat burner, and I'm taking my N2 Generate ES to make sure that my testosterone production is where it needs to be. Those are kind of the main, the four main. That's the foundation of my cycle, really. This cutting cycle I'm doing is the HG Generate ES to keep my test levels and my testosterone production going, and Tuslin to just shift that insulin sensitivity towards muscle building and fat burning. GW twice a day, and SR a few minutes before training, about 20 to 30 minutes before training. It seems like the best way to go. If you were going to run SR kind of without GW, then yeah, maybe to get all of the benefits out of it, fat burning, right? You might have to take it from morning till night because it has such a short half-life and you're not using anything else for fat loss. But seeing as though I'm stacking it with GW and adding it with the Entuslin and the ES, HG Enter Generate ES, then yeah, I mean, just using it as a pre-workout boost is the best way to go about it, in my opinion. What do you think?
So this is the way I would run it. You take the N2 Slim, the GW, and SR, you put them on a table. Okay. That GW, 20 milligrams a day. I don't care when you take it. Just take it 20 milligrams a day, whenever you want. Then what I would do is time restricted feeding. I would take the SR, I would do time restricted feeding. Then I would work out. So I would take the SR, 20 milligrams, about 30 minutes before my workout. Okay. Let's say my feeding windows between 4 and 8. Okay. Or 4 to 6, whatever, 4 to 6 p.m. So you would go take it at about, 2:30, 3 o'clock, take the 20 milligrams of the SR, then go work out, come home, take the Intuslin, take two caps of the Intuslin, and then I would have a healthy meal. And then an hour later, I'd have my second meal, or 2 hours later, I had my second meal, or 3 hours later, whatever, and then take another 2 capsules of the Intuslin, and then have my meal 30 minutes before. So that's the way I would run it. And if you wanted to like make it simple, just then take the GW that evening after your meal. Or you can take the GW like around noon or something. I just don't know. Like it just depends what's in the GW. I always worry like, oh my gosh, is there sugar in the GW? Is the grain alcohol going to affect your fast? I don't know. So, but at the end of the day, taking any drug or any hormone is going to affect the fast. But if your goal is just weight loss and you don't care about the other benefits of fasting, you don't care about the autophagy benefits, then just run it the way I told you, and you'll be good to go. You'll have amazing fat loss, and that's the way I would do it. And eat 2 healthy meals in that window. You don't go and eat McDonald's or pizza.
Yeah. Make sure you're getting real stuff. One of the things I notice when I go to my guy, the private guy, is sometimes he won't have stuff, and he'll tell me, "Hey, it's hard to get right now. I'm not gonna be able to get it for a few weeks." But then you go on these websites, and they all claim they have the compound, even though I know from hearing from my guy that the compound is dried up for one reason or another. There's not enough of it coming out of China or coming out of India, some of these places this stuff is made. But somehow on the websites, because they're open to the public, they always tend to have it, and that usually is them switching out compounds, taking pro hormones and throwing them into some of these bottles and calling them SARMs because some people don't know any better. You can probably take some of the ones or fours or five DHEAs and throw it into one of these into one of these bottles and say and put a SARM sticker on it, and then you hand it out to people, and people will get some effects. I mean, for a newbie or somebody that doesn't know much of anything, they'll feel something, and they'll just think this SARM gave me gyno. This SARM raised my liver values, things like that. And a lot of times it's just, these brands and these websites that are open to everybody sometimes have a lot of pressure to have the products in stock, and they just can't get it. Not because they don't have the money, or they are, sometimes they just can't get it, or sometimes their source that's been reliable for months and years sends them a bunch of bunk stuff, and all they do is just throw it in their products and don't care. So there's definitely that. If you're getting the real stuff, the real legit stuff, GW uh, and SR, if you get both legit, I mean, you're gonna be on just autopilot with fat burning. It's pretty decent. I'm gonna mess with it this year. I mean, I'm trying to put on a little bit of size on my specifically biceps, triceps, forearms, just to give myself a better symmetry look for when I take these pictures. And it's going to be interesting. See how much mass and size I can actually gain on my desired body parts as I chisel in and cut in my midsection. So we'll see how this GW and SR treats me in this process, and I'll be sharing with you guys all the information about it.
SR can also be stacked in steroid cycle, by the way. So you can use it as part of your steroid cycle if you're recomping, if you're cutting, if you're trying to get ready for a show, if you want just to get endurance during your cycle. It makes a big difference while you're working out. You just don't get winded on this stuff. So it makes a big difference when you're working out. Can you imagine just instead of like trying to stim yourself up for a workout to give yourself energy, just taking this stuff and not using a stem and just using your own body's adrenaline, your own body's, energy to tap into while you work out. It makes a huge difference. So yeah, I mean, give it a shot. I'm not like, this isn't magic, it's not magic. None of these PDs that we talk about are magic pills and magic beans, but they do give you an advantage. So I'll give you an example. I could say honestly, like your 5K time, you can knock off 30 to 45 seconds off your 5K time, just taking this before your 5K. That's how good this stuff is. So but it's not going to magically make you run a 16-minute 5K, you know what I'm saying? Like overnight. So if you run like a 22-minute 5K, which is a really good time, it'll help you get down into the mid 21s or low 21s. That's where it shines. So, and then your workouts, same thing. you'll be working out and you'll be like, wow, I'm not getting winded. So that's where it shines. Anything else to add before we finish up, right?
You know, I've said about SARMS quite a bit. Something like RAD or even YK, you know, some of the stuff that you'd be better off using steroids because steroids have all of those benefits and more. And we know what to expect out of steroids. And I've said that the only SARMs that are really kind of worth using are the ones that give you additional benefits that steroids don't give you. Additional benefits that steroids just don't give you at all. And this one, SR, like GW, what I really like about these is that they give additional benefits, but they're not competing with your androgens. They're not competing for androgen receptors. And that's pretty darn cool. So you can run your cycle, your cutting cycle, whatever it is you're doing, you can run it. You can hit it pretty hard. And you don't have to sit here and worry about these compounds, these weaker compounds, trying to compete your own testosterone, your own DHT, or other steroids you're taking, trying to compete them out of the androgen receptors. So you can actually stack these compounds on top of steroids and there won't be any effect. If anything, they're going to work in some synergy to make you feel better, make your cycle go a longer way. You know, if you are taking a nice cutting cycle with some nice expensive cutting steroids, because most of the cutting steroids are expensive, you know, some oxandrolone with Masteron, you know, you're doing something along those lines. If you throw in a cheap SARM that's competing for androgen receptors with those drugs, maybe not the best thing to do. But if you take in a SARM, or I should say a compound that's categorized as a SARM, as we're discussing right now, SR9009 or GW, then these compounds are not going to compete with the expensive steroids you're taking for androgen receptors. They're going to do their thing something else. They're going to work on and inhibit other proteins, and they're going to affect the way your cells work in a different pathway. And that's actually pretty darn cool. You know, the only SARM that I think I've really said, hey, this would be good for to take Osterin, at least, even though it does compete with androgen receptors, it helps heal bone and heal connective tissue, tendons, ligaments, joints, bone. I mean, it's great for that. So I can see a benefit there. But yeah. So couple of quick things on SR. There are two versions of SR out there that I've seen. They're both developed by the same lab. For the purposes of clarity, today we're discussing SR9009, and there's another one out there. Side effects, I think one major side effect that I've seen with SR that's here or there, some people get it, some people don't, is a little bit of a blurriness in the vision. And I've only seen a couple of guys report it. It doesn't seem to be very prevalent. It doesn't seem to be something that everybody's getting. But for the most part, this one seems to be pretty side effect free. Would I take? Look, I take N2 with every cycle just because I know what it does for my organs, for every organ in my body. I know what it does for my body. I know how I feel on it. So I take N2 with it. Is it necessary for liver support? What do you think, Steve? You've probably dealt, and you've done it yourself. I haven't used SR yet. You've done it yourself. You probably dealt with more guys using SR9009 Stenabolic. Do you think it's affecting the liver at all?
Yes. Because anything you put in your body that's foreign is going to affect your liver. I mean, it's just
And
like
it's fully
it's like
fully
sticking
synthetic
something
too.
down your toilet. You put
Yeah.
something down your toilet.
And it's
You
fully
put
synthetic. When you talk about even a steroid, the structure of the steroids is very, very, very close to testosterone. If you look at the structure of SR, it's nothing like testosterone. It is nothing like anything really naturally occurring that we can see.
very, very slight effect on the liver. But I've seen when you stack a bunch of SARMs together, a bunch of chemicals together, that really spikes it. So that's what you look for. It's just like your toilet. You stick a bunch of stuff down your toilet, it's going to clog up your pipes. That's the way the liver works. So, but if you stick a little bit, if you take a roll of paper towel, you slowly put paper towel in there and flush the toilet, it's probably not going to clog your pipes. But if you take a whole roll in there, it's going to clog your pipes. So that's the same thing. That's the way our livers work. Our livers are always working. So just avoid the alcohol. Stay away from alcohol. Take care of your liver. Take your N2 guard, and you'll be good to go. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, stay away from alcohol as long as you're not as long as you're not buying this in a liquid. If you're getting this in a liquid, you're gonna get a little bit of alcohol in there. Some people don't mind and don't care. Some people just completely hate the taste of it. I'm just done with it because I do a lot of fasted cardio, morning cardio, and man, just like taking a shot of SARMS swimming in grain alcohol in the morning before cardio, it doesn't feel good.
But a grain alcohol is not like vodka. It's not the same chemical.
Oh, it's way stronger though. Alcohol per volume is way stronger. Vodka sits at around 40.
But you're not gonna get drunk taking a bottle of SARMS.
It's the stomach feel. It feels terrible in the stomach and going down too when it's hitting your taste buds. It tastes terrible.
All right, guys. Well, I think we covered everything in this podcast. SR9009. This was podcast number 356. So yeah, I think we covered all the SARMs. So we're gonna move on to other compounds going forward, guys. So keep the questions coming. We'll have a Q&A on the way next week. Have a good one.
And if you guys are listening to this podcast now, make sure to look at the podcast that we did after this, because we're going to do some wrap-up shows. We're going to do a SARMS wrap-up show where we go down the line, down each and every SARM that we've already discussed, talk about the episode number, and just give you guys kind of a short final word on each SARM. And we're going to do that with some of the anti-estrogens and some of the steroids. We're going to do some wrap-up shows. So if you're reading this, if you're listening to the show now, make sure to look at the rest of our show library on your either whether you're listening on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, SoundCloud, wherever you're listening at. Make sure you go through the rest of our library, because we're going to have a really nice SARMS wrap-up show with references to each episode, so that you can just get all of our opinions about these SARMS in one show.
All right. Take care, you guys. See you guys later.
Have a good one, Steve. Have a good one, guys.
Guys, this is the required legal disclaimer. We are only sharing our experience from years of steroid use. We are not doctors, and none of what we say should be regarded as medical advice. Always check with your doctor before taking any drugs or starting any training program.